Okay, I think we are live. I think everything is working. Audio should be good, I hope. Please let me know if you can hear me and whatnot. I'm just trying to make sure everything is good. Before we jump in to what we're doing here, I always like to do an audio check to make sure we're good to go. I tweaked things a little bit. Hopefully, it still sounds all right. So, I hope everybody's doing well. I hope everybody is having a good weekend. And thank you for hanging out with me for at least a little bit today while we take a look at, at a service that people have been telling me to take a look at for a long time. Hey, okay, sorry. I'm ground control is about to drive me insane. It's so slow to catch up. It says that it's done its thing over here, but I'm glad Nighthawk can hear me. That's good. I appreciate the confirmation there. So so yeah, in this video, we're going to take a look at a service called Komodo. People have been talking about this for a while and encouraging me to check it out. And I haven't done that yet until recently. It's going to be one of those days I can already tell. I thought it was weird. I've got water. I've been drinking water. My throat's just like, nah, we're gonna be a little froggy on you there. So I don't know if that's an Idaho thing or not, saying you got a frog in your throat. I always felt stupid saying it, but I don't know how else to describe it because that's what I always heard it called. Hey, Collins is here as well. Glad to have you both here, as well as everybody else who is lurking right now, which is perfectly acceptable. I totally, we say it in the South too. Okay, surprise! I'm actually really glad to hear that. I was for a long time convinced that was something that my very rural family was doing, but heard it before. It's an old person thing. That's fair. Thomas W says hello, or hail rather. Excuse me. You know what? I'm gonna close this because I'm gonna reload ground control because I feel like it's not doing the thing. So I'm going to. Okay. I actually feel really much better about that. So we're going to do ground control. I'm going to try this again up here because I don't like looking over here when you guys are supposed to be there. So maybe it'll catch up. Hopefully it'll catch up here soon enough. But I hope everybody, like I said earlier, I hope everybody's doing well. So thank you all for joining me today. I guess let's just jump in. I think everything's working appropriately. Everything seems, I mean, except for ground control, and there's only so much I can really do with that, unfortunately. So, well, and there goes an ad on Twitch. I'm sure that it's going to happen on YouTube, but I don't get any notifications for that. Let me make sure that this is going to do the stuff it's supposed to do. Yeah, it's going to randomly pick them over on YouTube as well. So 3 minutes an hour over on Twitch, and I will do my best to keep tabs on that so we don't jump too far ahead or anything while you guys are getting ads over there. So if you're not familiar, there we go. Komodo. It's not. I really feel like the homepage could use some work, and that's not to be rude. It doesn't really tell us what it does. Build auto-versioned Docker images from Git repos. Trigger builds on Git push. That doesn't really tell us a whole lot. Damn it! I apologize, guys. That's really awful. I apologize. Basically, what it boils down to is that Komodo. Think of Komodo like Portainer on steroids. Komodo is basically a Docker management solution, very much like Portainer, but it does some things that Portainer can't. And I really appreciate that. I just started looking at this a few days ago, and I was in Discord complaining about the lack of documentation and some of the poor documentation, and that's I think that's kind of the nature of the beast sometimes. And what I mean by that is that very technically minded people are very often of the impression that everyone else is as technically minded as they are themselves. I've been guilty of this. I'm not trying to cast shade on anyone. I've absolutely been in that mindset and had to, as the kids say, check myself. Um, 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 so I really wish that was up there. That's so frustrating. Um, So ground control is supposed to be this window that's up here that I'm looking at while I'm looking at you guys, and the idea behind it is that it's supposed to show me what's going on in my chat feeds in Twitch and YouTube, and sometimes it's just really slow to do anything once the stream has started. Probably, it very well could be a Major Tom reference there. But yeah, I don't know. But I wish it worked better or was more responsive. I probably just need to reboot. It's whatever. Anyway, back to what I was saying. Technically, like super technically minded people often think that the people who are using the product or service or whatever that they're using are also equally technically minded. Um, and there's just some documentation in here that I feel could be better, could be more explanative, because that's a word I just made up. There's some lacking areas in some of the documentation, in some of the notation within the Docker Compose files, that sort of thing. And some of it I don't understand still. I guess the upside to having documentation that needs better is that when the person reading the documentation gets frustrated and then figures it out, it feels like a bigger win. I don't know that that was done by design here, but yeah, so that's my little intro or explainer what's going on there. The chat is off. I don't. Oh, it is a real world. Oh, a real world. I'd be damned. I thought I was being clever. So this is screenshots of Komodo, right? And we're going to take a look at mine here in a second. But this is what the main dashboard of Komodo looks like. More often than not, of course, variations in servers, stacks, and deployments. I haven't got there's a lot of this I haven't gotten into yet. So we're only going to touch on what I'm familiar with, unless one of you super smart people in the chat comes in and is like, hey, here's how to do this, that, or the other. In order for that, I'm going to have to look over here periodically, and I apologize for breaking our special connection here. But this is, like I said, this is basically what it looks like. Like I've dealt with some of this, some of it I haven't. So let's come back over to here. YouTube is kind of messed up on my end. The chat is off. The chat shouldn't be off. That's weird. Like it's got to be on your end because other people are. Big gap at the top, throwing off the webpage. I don't know what you're saying. Sorry, I want to see if this is an issue. I want to fix it. I'm gonna pop this open. I want to look. I want to look at what's going on here and see if I have screwed something. Oh, geez, if I've screwed something up here, because look, I admit it's very likely that I have. Nope. It is a you thing. Everything here looks good to me. The resolution might be off. Man, I don't know. Oh, you popped out the chat. Okay. Well, then we're not going to spend any more time on that. Thank you for clarifying. It's all good. Okay. Popped out the chat. Okay. Michael Hanley says it's great, but the documentation is lacking. Any kind of examples or good notation of the Git repo versus the repos? Dude, right? Yeah. No, it's it's the documentation is in need of a rework or for a lot of us a dumbing down. And I mean that respectfully because it needs to be dumbed down for me too. Like there was some of it that was just, I was like wanting to punch myself in the head a couple of times. Of course I didn't. I'm working past those emotions. Yeah, thanks, Collins. Yeah, if you haven't already, give this stream a like. That'd be great. Oh, one other thing I want to mention while we're still like less than 15 minutes into this stream. This is a live stream, and I know those of you who are here understand that. But there's been some confusion in when the live stream is over and it turns into a VOD or a video on demand. I've had some complaints recently that I used to make 15-minute videos and people don't have time to waste on a 2 to 3 hour video. I should shorten my demonstrations, get back down to that 15-minute mark. This is a live stream. And I will probably make a dedicated video about this service later. This is to get some community interaction and feedback while we go through the application. So if you don't have time to watch a 2 to 3 hour live stream while we go through this as a community, that's fine. There, again, will probably be a much shorter, more concise tutorial exploratory thing that I will do later. But I want to make sure that I clarify that early on in this live stream for people who seemingly don't know how live streams work. So that's my diatribe. Let's move on. Let's come back over to here. So, okay, so this is, we'll go through a couple more screenshots and then, yeah, I don't like that one. It's fine, but it doesn't tell me anything. Man, you know. Okay, you know what? Screw it. We're not going to do that. We're gonna close some of this stuff out. This is my instance of Komodo. Let's see. Jan, thank you so much for that. I thank you for the gifted subscription there, the membership rather. I'm gonna try this ground control thing one more time because, oh, if I could spell. We're gonna try this one more time, and then I'm just probably gonna give up on it because as much as I would like to have this, it's really screwed. Okay, that's enough of that. Holy cow. Up there. We're gonna let this load one more time. That's fine. What's this? No. Just want to make sure that everything is turned on. I don't understand. Anyway, so this is my instance of Komodo, right? Well, this is my demo instance that I've been messing around with for the last few days. I know dark mode is hard to read. I get that. I'll switch it to light mode for you guys because you're rock stars for being here. Sorry, the way you could fix that is to edit the live stream to a dedicated video, but that seems like work, dude. It really is. It is more work for me to try to take a live stream and truncate it down into a dedicated video using all of the live stream footage than it is to actually just do a dedicated video and say, hey, recently we did a live stream about this. There's a link in the description for that. I tried a couple of times to do that and it went really poorly for me. So now I do it this way. And Darkan15 says it's really a silly complaint considering that you do streams to explore an app and then you always do a condensed. Yeah, dude, I get it. I'm glad we're on the same page. So here's my dashboard. This one's in light mode now. So across the top, you're going to get obviously the logo, top left, that standard search bar, documentation version, triggered WebSocket reconnect. Cool. We've got keyboard shortcuts. That's neat. I don't ever use keyboard shortcuts as much as I probably could. We've got notifications, light mode, dark mode system, and then I can log out from there. And then down the left side, that's where all of our navigation is going to happen. We will look at that in a bit. When you first log in, you're going to see, this obviously, but I've got 3 servers running from this single instance of Komodo. Local is the one that we're looking at. I named it local so that I could have some separation in my brain and understand what was going on. So this one is called local. I've also got Zendu and dumb assets. The reason I've named them those things is because that's the name of the LXC where I've got the agent installed to manage those servers, right? I'm actually going to do a prox demo. I thought that's what I was logging into over there, but I was wrong. We're going to proceed, and I'm going to log in. That's fine. So as an example, right, this is Komodo, right? That's where we are. And then if we come over to here, Komodo, this is the one that we're looking at right here. But then, like I said, I've got Zendu right here. That is this server. And then dumb assets is this one right here. And that was, I just threw some agents on a couple of LXCs I already had running. For later in this video, we're going to use Komodo Master as our local host. And then I've got three separate LXCs set up that we can install Komodo agents on later when we get to that point. It'll be much easier to keep track of that way. But that's kind of the chaos that happens when I'm testing stuff. So I can click this and I can get more information about whichever server I just clicked. And it will give me, like the name of it that I gave. You can adjust the name. I don't know if that's the IP address. It is the IP address. I understand that. Or if it's actually the region that I gave it down here. I don't remember, if I'm completely honest. From here, we've got template, which we'll talk about templating later. We've got which version we're on, how many cores, how much RAM, how much storage. You can also add tags to this if you want to, but I haven't done that. Okay, cool. I'm glad you guys are on my team with some of that. That's good with regards to other stuff. So we get our basic information here. We can give it a description if we want to do that. That's what I really do like about this, is that it gives us a lot of opportunity to identify what that server is. And what it's used for, those sorts of things. I really, really appreciate that. Over here, I love this section so much. And we're going to see versions of what I'm going to show you here in a couple of different places. But if we click there, it keeps versions of things for us. So if we change something, and like here, we can see that we added the region to that, right? It wasn't there before, but we added it here, and we can see that in green right there. And I love that. Update server, the address. So down here for the address, which is this area right here, I was playing around with the address for that, whether it was periphery or whether it was the IP address, because it confuses me. If I switch this to the IP address of the server, things break. And this will make more sense later. But it's super frustrating that this doesn't work the way I want it to. And it's probably something that I've done wrong, but we will demonstrate that later. Coming back up to here, that was the periphery thing. We renamed the server there from this string of characters to local. So we get, here was me messing with that again. I switched it from the IP address to there. Hey, there's JD showing up over in Twitch up here in my screen. That's weird. Maybe Twitch has to initiate first. I don't know. That's really strange. But anyway, the point of this area up here in the top right of my screen is that you can keep track of the changes that you made. It has versioning built into it, and I can't tell you how happy that makes me. But it's not just here. I want to demonstrate that somewhere else, right? Here's Dumppad. Here's a full list of everything that happened when I deployed the compose up, all of the stuff that it created, the process it went through to download everything, the command that it ran. This was actually when I added the Docker Compose or the stack to the setup. There was nothing there. There's the Docker Compose or the stack that I added. If I were to at any point change this, there would be another entry here showing exactly what line I changed and what it was and what it is. And that would have saved me so much time and frustration and a headache in Portainer. I understand these aren't the same product, but I really love that this is a thing. Like, here's where I created the stack. Having the ability to have versioning built into this should be the standard. This just blows my gourd. Love this so much. Let's come back to here. So we looked at local, right? We were there for a second. Here is Zendu. Again, same general idea. I updated the server by changing the region. That was the little note that I left myself down here. So that when I get into servers, I can know which IP address I'm dealing with. I use the region, or I'm using the region, at least for right now, as a note. I don't use, and I think that's what it's meant for, but I'm using it for notes to let me know what's going on. Portainer isn't, or Watchtower isn't from Portainer. So those are, I think you're just conflating those two terms. It's fine. But Watchtower is from a developer group called Container with like 3 R's or something. Let's see. Tejas says, how does Komodo help attach and manage storage like persistent storage? So we'll get into that when we deploy a stack later. We're going to talk about that a little bit. Because I think you're kind of conflating that a little bit too. Perfectly acceptable. We don't know what we don't know, and that's fine. And that goes for me as well. I may be misunderstanding your question, but we'll get to it. So anyway, So Zendu is what we were just looking at, right? And we've got all of our differences up here, our changes, our versioning, whatever you want to call it. From here, we can restart containers, pause containers, stop containers, prune our build, or prune our system. I love there's a prune right there. That makes me so happy. Our config, again, we've got our address, our enabled timeout disks. Like we can change so many different things in here to get notifications. Enabled, yes or no, whether to attempt to connect to this host, send alerts if offline. Disabling will also convert all attached resources state to unknown. So you can enable or disable agent or remote setups from your dashboard with a single click right there. How long do you want it to time out? Do you want it to ignore disks? If undesired disk mounts are coming through, you can ignore certain disks. Do you want to enable system stat monitoring? Do you want to auto prune images at a certain time? This one, I don't know if I would necessarily do that, but you can click save and we can click update and we can click confirm. That was another thing. In fact, I want to show that again. We're gonna change auto prune images back to enabled. I'm gonna click save, and it's like, hey, are you sure? Yep, I'm gonna update. Are you absolutely sure? Yes. If you don't want to click confirm so many times, you can disable that in the Docker Compose that we're going to use to deploy this later. But I wanted to call attention to that, because the first couple of times I was like, what the hell? Why is it doing? But I understand why it's doing that. Also, if we come back up to here, hey, look, it's letting us know all of the things that we changed there, changing auto prune to true or false. It's keeping track of all of the changes that we're making, and I love it. Yep. Sidewinder says, hey, DB, how are you doing? Doing good, thanks. Glad to have you here. Thanks for stopping by and hanging out for a few minutes. I appreciate it. So anyway, that's the config tab here. That is kind of all of this. And there's a lot of other stuff that you can get notifications if your CPU usage goes too high. You can adjust what is too high or what is critical. You can do the same thing for memory. What is too high? What is critical? Disk alerts, what is too high? And you can get alerts on all of this different stuff via a number of different methods. And you can also be like, hey, during this time, I'm going to be doing maintenance. You can add a maintenance window. During this time, don't bother me. I know that there's an issue. I'm working on it. So you can disable updates, notifications, that sort of thing during certain times if you know that you're going to be doing something, which is just friggin' amazing. Oh, that's dumb. I'm taking my watch off. I keep getting notifications and it's distracting me, and I don't need more distractions. So let's go back to the top. Stats, right? So here, this is our host name. So our system info, host name, OS, kernel, CPU, core count, memory, disk usage, all of our live-ish information, the containers running therein, CPU history, memory history, disk history, network ingress, network egress, disk usage, processes show, hey, look, there's all the processes that are running on that server, which is not the server we're actually on right now. It is a completely different LXC that we're looking at all of the historical data on through Komodo. This makes me giddy. So that is stats. Here we've got Docker. Again, we can see the name of the Docker image, its state, the image that it's using, what network it's on, and the port. Now, earlier I mentioned, I'm going to pop this open over here, right? Earlier I mentioned on local that there was the address right here that was HTTPS periphery 8120. If I try to go to, let's go to, you know what, let's go to local. Let's do this. I want to show you what the issue is, right? We're going to go to Docker. Yeah, so like this is Komodo core. This is what we're on right now. In theory, I should be able to click this, but it's going to take me to HTTPS periphery 9120 for the port. That's not helpful. But if I try to change this address right here to the IP address of the server that we're on, it will fail. However, on my remote agent LXCs or servers or whatever, I can click that. Hey, look, there it is. Because in here, under the config, I put the address, the IP address of that remote server. That's what I was trying to do on the local version, the one that we're actually looking at here. So super frustrating that it was causing me issues. I'm sure that I screwed something up. I just don't know what. Of course, I say that now I think I know what, but maybe not. We'll come back and take a look. In fact, I'm almost sure I know what the issue is now that I've said that. We're going to come back to that. Anyway, so we're on Docker. This is containers, networks. Hey, look, there's networks here. We've got volumes. So we've got our Docker volumes here. And then we've got images as well. These are all of the different images that are here. I actually want to come back. And there we can kind of see what's going on as far as that's concerned for that, the container and the details for that. First host, env file. Does the region actually do anything? I'm using it for notes. Yeah, over here, the region I've just got right here. And if we come to servers, I've got the region set to the IP address of the remote agent or the remote server that I'm managing, just so that it's easier for me to keep it in my head which one is which. I think it's the first host in the env file. You would think, but it could be. I think there's one other thing that might be in there. We're going to take a look at that later. If I don't keep moving in a forward direction while we're looking at this, we'll never come back. The meds can only do so much for me. So anyway, that's, and again, dumb assets. This is another remote server. It's all going to be the same. Again, stats, Docker, resources. There are stacks in here. And then we've got terminals, so we can do a new terminal. And then we can do like IPA. Oh, ooh, interesting. Apt update. Okay, weird. IF config. No, IPA should work. Interesting. Install IP. I don't know, man. It's apt install IP. Yeah, there we go. Nope. Whatever. It doesn't matter. But there's your terminal for that. But anyway, that's kind of what you're going to see when it comes to taking a look at the individual servers. You've got a lot of information that you can go through here. You can do new deployments. You can do new stacks on a server by server basis. Or like if I were to come over here and click new stack, I can say, test stack. I can select a template of one that I've already got built. We'll come back to that later, or we can click create. And then we can select which server we want to put it on. Let's do it on DOM assets. And then we can do select mode. And then we can do UI defined files on server or get repo. So if you've got a Docker Compose folder that you can define, Docker Compose.yaml folder that you can define in the Docker Compose to deploy Komodo, you can have it pull from there, or you can connect to a GitHub repository. If you just do UI defined, this is how I'm probably going to use this, is the UI defined, copy and paste this into here, and then it would deploy from there. That's what a stack is, right? Sorry, I'm looking at something here. Hold on, I want to look at something. New stack. I think I've missed something. There it is. Okay. So up here at the top, right? We're going to select this. We're going to select a mode. We're going to do UI defined. And this is our Docker Compose. What I was looking for a minute ago was this template where it says test here, right? Config missing, no configuration provided for stack, cannot get stack state, fine. We're just going to deploy this in kind of a ridiculous manner for the sake of showing something here, right? So here is our Docker Compose for this test thing that I have set as a template. And I'm going to click save. It's like, hey, you good? Yep, we're going to update that. Confirm. Cool. Deploy. Confirm. Test failed. That's fine. Don't care. There was nothing in here to actually deploy, right? So if we come back and let's say we want to deploy something new, we're going to call it 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to select that. Hey, look, there's that test. We can click create. And there is the Docker Compose that we just turned into a template a minute ago. And from there, we can put it on different servers. We can basically create a Docker Compose that we want to use on different servers. Say we wanted to deploy agents of something else somewhere, or whatever the case is, you can create these templates so that they're easier to deploy later and they're consistent. I could put that there, but then I can still modify the template over here before I actually deploy it. And having the ability to create these as templates, I love this. This is amazing. I know you can do something similar with Portainer, but it's so intuitive here. I'm just absolutely loving it. Okay, just making sure. Mindbend is here. Glad to have you here. Thanks for stopping by. Appreciate that. So anyway, stacks here are just like stacks in Portainer or Docker Compose files if you do things via the command line or however Dockage does it or whatever. These are the services that you're going to deploy. Now, somebody earlier asked, how does it handle, hold on, I just want to make sure I get this right. How does it manage storage like persistent storage for Docker containers from MySQL and file system? Okay. Let's see. Let's get our words out, right? So that's a bad example. Papra, right? So in here, your Docker Compose is going to be the same in Komodo as it would be in a Docker Compose file or a stack in Portainer or whatever. You're still going to map it the exact same way. Komodo is just a Docker container to manage other Docker containers, whether it's locally or it's on a remote system. So basically, you're just going to handle your volumes the same way. Like here, this is a mapped volume where it would be a directory on the server that you're deploying on. If you wanted to do something like this, you could do Papra, right? Like so, and then come down here and you could do volumes, Papra, like so, and then you would have a Docker volume that way. And then you could manage your storage the same way here that you would on any other container deployment. Like I said, this is just a Docker container to manage other Docker containers with a nice graphical user interface, or a GUI, as some people probably know them. So that's, and I apologize for taking a while to get to your question about how it handles storage. It doesn't. Your storage for this is still handled the same way it would be in any other Docker configuration setup. If you wanted to use, a different file system, like an NFS file system on a different machine, you would still have to map that in your host operating system for Komodo. So there's really nothing being handled here other than the deployment of other Docker containers and keeping tabs on them here. So that's, I hope that answers the question that you had earlier about that. Let me scroll down. Okay. The terminal might not be what you want if you're using the Docker periphery as opposed to the system D installed version. That's good to know. Thank you for explaining that. I have not used the system D version of this, so that could absolutely be what the issue is there. Sven is here saying, hello, everyone. Dark mode. Yes, sir. Dark mode's right there. Or you can put it in system mode and it will just follow whether you've got light mode or dark mode on your operating system, your Windows or your Linux or whatever you're using as your desktop. So I've got it in light mode because I'm aware that dark mode is often hard to read on videos, especially in highly compressed live streams. So I switched to light mode to try to make a viewing experience a little better because we're dealing with a lot of text here. Let's see. Savog says, hey, techies, thanks for joining. Appreciate you being here. Ashish Darji says, light mode. Yeah, we're going to do that here. How does this interact with your setup where you run Docker in multiple LXCs for each of your services? Would you just have each LXC as a server within Komodo? Yes, sort of, but yes. So basically, we'll come back because that's a good question, right? So on, this is my main homepage, right? Local, this is the server that we're on right now. This is this 177 IP address right here. Zendu and dumb assets are other LXCs where I've got dumb assets as LXC 142 and the other one 106 for Zendu, right? But what I've done is I have deployed effectively the Komodo agent on those other LXCs and have it connected to this LXC so that I can manage all of the containers on those LXCs via a single dashboard. And that includes being able to come in here and create a stack or find a stack that's already running and be like, oh, you know what? I want that on my local setup there. And then I can click save and deploy it from here. Or I can select a different server and deploy it there. I can, from one dashboard, deploy Docker containers to any other server that I've got an agent connected to. And that is where I think Portainer falls short. Even using the Portainer agent like I have set up on my main server, I can do updates, like I can run container updates through the Portainer agent interaction from a central dashboard, but I can't deploy anything. I can't manage the Docker Compose files from there. I have to log into each individual instance that LXC's Portainer in order to change anything. But with Komodo, I can deploy the agents on whichever servers I want and connect to them. I've only done things locally on several different LXCs. I haven't gone outside of my network, so I can't speak to that. But from one dashboard, I can now manage the Docker containers on multiple LXCs. And it's really awesome. I don't know how else to say it. I know that's a big statement, but I'm really, really happy with it. So anyway, that's stacks, right? I know we kind of blew through that, but that's stacks in a nutshell here. We've also got deployments. No idea. I don't know. New deployment. We'll call this live stream. So from here, you can grab an image or a build, an account, a network mode. So like this is kind of building a Docker Compose file, I think. But again, the documentation's not great. So I'm not 100% sure on what this is. Same with builds, new build Docker images, live stream. Again, I don't know what this is. I don't, and because of that, I don't have anything to say about it other than I wish the documentation was better to explain this in more detail. Like if I come over to here and go to docs, build images, it's, I mean, there's information here. It's not as intuitive as I think it should be. But again, I think it's kind of what we talked about earlier in the stream, where very often very technically minded people are of the assumption that people using their software will also be of equally technical mind. And that's not a dig at the developer here. I have absolutely been guilty of that assumption in my own presentations. And that's something I've had to work on a lot. So I can't expect everybody to have been through the same experience as myself. So let's see. Let's come back to Komodo. Is that the right one? That's good enough for who it's for, I suppose. Build repos. You can add repos. Okay. Christoph says builds and deployments are for building and distributing Docker image builds. Cool. I'm never going to do that. I don't know what else to say there. You can add repositories here, like GitHub repositories, so that you can get updates from those more easily. You know, you add your repo, give it a name. We're just gonna Livestream, right? You can select your server, select your builder, which I think would just be local. Give it a source, give it an account, give it a repo, a branch, all of that sort of thing. And then it should clone that repository to build everything locally from here, which is, again, something else that, to my knowledge, at least in the free community version, Portainer can't do. Again, I'm not a big fan of doing it this way, but I think a lot of that has to do with my lack of experience with that process. I'm sure if I got into this a bit more, I would have a different opinion of it. But my opinion right now is that I don't have enough experience to have an opinion. Procedures, no idea. Let's see what it says about procedures. Procedures and actions. For orchestrating involving multiple resources, Komodo offers a resource and action resource type. Procedures are compositions of many executions, run, build, deploy, stack. The executions are grouped into a series of stages where each stage contains one or more executions to run all at once. The procedures will wait until the execution is in stage are complete before moving on to the next stage. In short, executions in a stage run in parallel, and the stages themselves are executed sequentially. That's a lot of words, but it kind of makes sense. Again, I don't build Docker images very often, so I don't think this is really going to apply. Same thing with actions, probably the same thing with syncs, declares resources and toml files. Sync resources. Komodo is able to create, update, delete, and destroy resources declared in toml files by diffing them against the existing resources and apply updates based on the diffs. Interesting. And here are some example declarations for server config schema. Interesting. Again, this is not something that I would do. A deployment is just running a one-off container versus a stack. Okay, that's good to know. Let's see. I missed Harnold says, I just installed Squirrel Servers Manager and have been playing with it. Lets you manage Docker stacks and run Ansible playbooks. It was actually Squirrel Server Manager that got me interested in the idea of familiarizing myself with Ansible a little bit. I'm still fighting with it, but I haven't given up yet. But I've got a little bit of experience with Squirrel Servers Manager, so that's kind of neat. SSM could assist with deploying, configuring the storage piece. That's true. It could. Let's see. Christoph says, I think the power I like anyway of the repos is that you can store all of your Docker Compose files in a repo and pull them from there. That is actually pretty cool. That's actually something I need to work on, is getting all of my Docker Compose files stored somewhere so that I've got them for later. I've been really, really bad about that. Like I mentioned in my recent video, I'm running like 18 LXCs and a couple of VMs, and not all of them have Docker Compose files in them because of the nature of the application they're in. But I really do need to make or create backups of all of those. I need to store them in my Git file or Docker container, whatever, so that I've got them. So if I need to redeploy, I can. But yeah, like I said, there's a lot of this. There's a fair amount of this in here. Basically, if I'm honest, I've done dashboard, resources, containers, servers, and stacks. Everything from like deployments to syncs. It's not how I typically handle things. It's not how I manage my server, but I'm glad that those options are there for those who do, because not everybody runs their server the same way. Not everybody deploys the same way. So to have all of this extra stuff in there, I think definitely opens up who Komodo or the user or the potential user base for Komodo, I guess is what I'm trying to say there. Next, we've got notifications. We've got alerts. Here are all of the different alerts that have been sent since I deployed this. And I got those updates over here via Godify. I was actually able to go in, I think through my Docker Compose. Was it my Docker Compose? No, it was actually in here. I was able to go into alerters and create a new alerter by saying, live stream. And then I was able to say enabled, custom. I was using, I think, custom there. And then I was able to put in the information for that. And then I could select which notifications I wanted to get. Super easy to set up. I love that it's built into the dashboard. So yeah, alerts, getting all the alerts there. And then updates. Again, here are, there's an update. Like I just created that literally just now. And you can see all of the stuff that I've been doing on here gets documented as well. Having this much documentation as far as what has happened, I absolutely love. And it'll tell you what happened in that particular thing. It will run you through. There's your config log. Like all of this is there. And it's so intuitive to find everything. It's so easy to just be like, I don't remember, like I was messing with something over here on this. What was it I did? And it was like, oh, at that point I added this. And it's like, oh, you know what? Before that, it looked different, but I don't remember what the variable was before that. Cool. It's been documented. You can go back and look at it. I love that. Let's see. Do other resources on the project documentation side be very useful. Other resources on the project. Let's look at other resources. Oh, well, there you go. Migrating to Komodo. Yeah, that's great. That's really, really great. Community alerters. Yeah, in fact, it was this one that I used right here. This Godify was the community alerter that I found. And yeah, you just drop that in there, and it just worked, and I really, really liked that. So yeah, I did spend some time in here as well, setting up Komodo compared to Portainer and an FAQ by Skyfay. Like they've done a really good job with a lot of their documentation or some other documentation, but I think others could be kind of, like I said earlier, dumbed down a little bit to make it a bit easier for those of us who aren't quite as technically minded but want to use something other than Portainer. So I think what we're going to do now, because that's really, I think the gist of it. Again, you got schedules. I don't have any. There's no way to see an overview of your scheduled tasks. Updates. I don't know. Settings. Wait, variables. Add a new variable. I don't know what that would be used for. I mean, I guess I do. Tags, builders, alerters, providers, users, and profile. All of that is in here under settings. So that was kind of a quick I say quick, we've been at it for 50 minutes, 45 minutes. Let's call it 45 minutes. Just a 45-minute overview of the basic gist of how this works. But I'm going to close this, right? I'm going to close that. I'm going to close that. And this is my Proxmox demo server. Yeah, we talked about dark mode earlier. It does have dark mode. It's got light, dark, and system following mode. Do you have a video about Godify and setup? I do. Let's do DB Tech Godify. Yeah, right there. Just Google DB Tech Godify and it's there. Actually, that released on my birthday last year. I'll be damned. How much money would you pay for it if it wasn't open source? Honestly, I wouldn't. And that's not to discredit the developer. Like if it was a one-off license, like if I could pay them $25 or $50 or whatever, maybe. But like a monthly service fee, a recurring licensing thing, that sort of thing, probably not. Because I don't need it. Because at that point, it's not that big of a deal for me to come into here and run some update commands. It's not that big of a deal for me to come in here and grab my Portainer template, clone it, and install an application directly from the command line. My whole thing when it comes to talking about these sorts of containers is to get people away from subscription models and save them some money. I've had plenty of services reach out to me to be like, hey, will you promote this semi-self-hosted thing where there's this fee attached to it? And I'm not a fan of that. I don't want people to have to pay to host software on their own servers. So I'm always looking for the option to not have to pay for it, right? If there was, look, let's actually do this, right? Let me do this. If there was a free version and a paid version, and all it had was dashboard down to stacks and alerts, and it didn't have anything else, awesome. That's all I need. Like if they wanted to make this more, you can't see that. If they had, like I said, dashboard, resources, containers, server, stacks, and alerts, and of course settings, because you have to have settings. If everything else was gone from the free version, I wouldn't blink. It wouldn't make a difference to me. But that's how I run things, right? Like I don't need all of that other stuff for the way I do things on my setup. Komodo is a convenience. Like I said, I don't need Portainer. I don't need Komodo. I don't need Dockage. I don't need any of those things to do what I need to do here, right? Like I can do things from the command line comfortably. So if there was a paid version that include deployments, down to syncs, and updates and schedules, if they wanted to make that a pro version or a commercial version or a whatever version that was $10 a month and they wanted to make their money that way, all the power to them if that's what they want to do. But it's kind of like when we dealt with, we did a web application firewall called SafeLine a while back. And they had a free version, I think, that was garbage effectively, or for the basic features, it was $100 a month. And I was just like, no. In fact, they reached out and offered to sponsor content about their service. And that's how I found out about them. And then I researched them some more and I deployed things and I found a lot of things in their setup that I didn't like. I didn't like that it was $100 a month to get very basic reporting. I didn't like that that their server continually, like once a minute or several times an hour or whatever, it was phoning home back to their servers in China. I didn't like that. So rather than taking their money, I made a video about it and I was like, this is great, but. And there were a couple of us, like I made a video about it. Jim's Garage made a video about it. I don't know if his was sponsored or not. Other people made content about it around the same time. And I feel like they kind of felt the pressure from being called out for the exorbitant price for very, very basic reporting and functionality. They're entitled to do with their licensing what they want to do, but But if your target demographic is homelab users, self-hosters, and you're trying to gorge them for 50 or $100 a month to use your software, somebody will create a free version of that software, and have better features. I've seen that kind of stuff happen. So you've got to be careful with which features you're trying to lock behind a paywall, because otherwise somebody may fork your initial project and modify the crap out of it, make it better. So if they wanted to charge for it, that is their prerogative, but I wouldn't pay them for it because I don't need to. And that's not me trying to flex or whatever. Like I don't need a graphical user interface to deploy my Docker containers and manage my stuff. I can do it from the command line. And if they wanted to be exploitative, anybody could just go use Portainer or Dockage or whatever, right? There are lots of options out there. So, let's see. Are you making more videos about Pangolin? It's amazing. I've made 2 videos so far. I made one in January, and then I made one in May after they added multi-domain support, and OIDC and something else. Like when I made the first video in January, it worked really well, but it didn't. It only supported one domain, and it didn't have OIDC. I'm trying to decide if OIDC is something I want to implement. I actually deployed Authentic the other night, and I kind of dig it. But there are just some things I got to figure out about it first. So I don't know. But as far as it, look, if Owen and Milo make another big feature update version of Pangolin, probably. But just to make another video for the sake of making another video about it, probably not. Like they'll have to do another big feature update for me to make more content about it. That said, actually last night I deployed it for myself because I've been using Cloudflare tunnels for a really long time. And I've recently started using Postas, which I've made a video about that recently as well. And for some reason, Cloudflare tunnels is causing me issues with Postas, and there's an intermediate layer in there from I think it's the beacon.js file, which is their analytic file that they throw in there so that users of Cloudflare tunnels can get analytic data about how many visitors they're getting, that sort of thing. That file kept throwing an error anytime I was trying to connect. And that file is from Cloudflare. That file was causing issues when I tried to connect my Postas instance to Facebook. It's an intermediate issue, or inconsistent issue is the better word there. And I got tired of it. I did a bunch of troubleshooting last night, got tired of it, and finally just deployed my own instance of Pangolin. I moved Postas to it. I moved my link stack clone to it, and I moved Bookstack to it, and everything works just fine. You guys will never notice the difference. It's just as fast as it was before. So it's a great product, and I love using it now that I'm actually using it. But you know, but I probably won't make any more content until they have another big feature update. Let's see, Thomas. Oh, geez, that scrolled. Thomas says to pay for your own data seems wrong to me. Paying support for support is one thing. I agree. I understand a licensing fee for certain things, but if you're trying to get into offering services, whether it's Komodo or that application firewall, SafeLine, or whatever. Like, again, they have their prerogative to do what they want with it. But if I needed to pay them for support, that would be fine. I wouldn't have a problem with that. But if it was a licensing fee every month, no. To my knowledge, the dev has been very clear about it being free forever. I'm really glad to hear that. Does anyone know a cheap VPS? I do. Tech reviews. VPS hosting. Yeah, like this is an affiliate link or an affiliate page. I'm going to paste that a couple of times. This is what I use. You can't see that. This is what I use. It's Racknerd. I've been using them since November, I think, in some capacity. It's $11 per year for this setup as it currently stands. You can go up higher than that. Like I'm actually using the 3.5 gig version for my Pangolin instance, but I think the 2 gig would probably be fine. The 1 gig might be a little wonky. I don't know, but I'm currently using the 3.5 gig for my Pangolin instance, and it's great. Another big feature is SaaS for non-self-hosted option. Yeah, there is an affiliate link there. Monish, that's an interesting comment that you've got there as far as my health looks like it's visibly going down. That's an interesting take. What I can say is that I've had blood work done twice this week, and all of my numbers are the best they've been in 9 years. So my health is actually going up. The kicker to that, the side note to that is also my weight has gone back up a little bit, and that's unfortunate, but that is something that I'm trying to take accountability for and change. But no, I would make 2 statements to that. One, again, actually my health is probably the best it's been in 9 years. And 2, it's kind of just rude to make comments like that in a public forum. Like just saying, hey, you look like shit is really rude. I know you didn't use that exact vernacular, but telling somebody in a public forum that they look bad, super rude. I advise maybe not making comments like that. Just an inappropriate thing to do. So, more laps in the pool needed, I guess. Yeah, maybe. I've only been in the pool a couple of times this year. It's not a me thing. I'm actually thinking about getting my bike back up and running. I think at this point I might need new tires and tubes, and I may go start riding that more. But it's something I know I need to work on. But yeah. So anyway, let's move on. Right? Let's go over to here. We're gonna close this out. Komodo master. This is the one that we're going to deploy our main node on for Komodo. Do they charge for network traffic too? I mean, you get a couple of terabytes of traffic on, I think, the 1 and the 2.5 gig or the 2 gig. Like on the 3.5 gig, I get like 5 terabytes of traffic. So there is traffic included in their packages. So let's come over to here. Let's set up Komodo core. So if we do this, right, set up Komodo, right? Okay, so there's a few different ways we can do this. And they're very explicit in here saying, look, if you use MongoDB, it will have lower CPU usage, but higher RAM usage. Also, some systems don't support running the latest MongoDB versions. And in this, there's somebody that's like, hey, just use an older version of this, use MongoDB 4.4 if you run into issues, and they quit having issues. So, or you can use FerretDB, which is Postgres, I guess, with lower RAM usage and a higher CPU usage. So there's trade-offs on which one you use. But we're gonna go with the MongoDB version of this. Now there's a couple of commands that, well, there's one command that you can run here. It's actually 2 commands, but it's one command because you got this, do this and that. Basically what we're going to do is download this Mongo compose.yaml file into a folder called Komodo. We're also going to download this compose.env file into that same Komodo directory there, right? So it's going to do both of those things. And then you're going to edit the variables in the komodo/compose.env file. If you're not comfortable doing that, that is perfectly acceptable, and they got you covered. You can scroll down and hey, look, there's the Docker compose for that. And then in this tab, there's an env file here as well. So you can do it either way. If you want to manually create each file, you can do that, or you can run this wget couple of commands and do it that way as well. I discovered some really useful tools for Proxmox. Oh, interesting. Let's see. Savog. Sorry, I'm. Was it? I don't. Interesting. Savog. I'm not sure where you found that. Savog, share that in Discord suggestions, just so I can have easier access to it, if you don't mind. If it's a double post, it's a double post. I'm giving you my blessing. Double post it. So here's what we're gonna do, right? I'm gonna run this command over here. This is again the Komodo master node that we're gonna use here. I'm just gonna run that and hit enter. I'm gonna clear my screen and do an ls. There's our Komodo directory right there. So we're going to cd into Komodo, and then we're going to do an ls. And here we can see we've got our Mongo compose YAML file, as well as our compose.env file. What we want to do first is edit that compose file. I'm going to zoom in a little bit here where I can. Maybe try to shrink this down a little bit. Zoom in a little bit. There we go. All right, so we're going to do nano compose. And here we've got some information that we're going to take a look at, right? Compose, Komodo image, latest is fine. Database credentials, admin. I changed both of those in my setup, and it was like, hey, you didn't change that, so we're going to use the defaults. Cool. I did change it, but it didn't do anything. Komodo passkey. Now, whatever we make this passkey, we need to make a note of that because we're going to need it later. If we don't have it later, it's going to complicate things. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to delete this. Right, I'm just going to mash on my keyboard, not quite that much though. And then I'm going to grab this Komodo passkey line, and I'm going to save it in my dumpad instance so that I have easier access to it later when we start deploying things on other LXCs. I'm going to come over to here. I'm going to come down, drop a new line. We're going to use this key later in our little demonstration here. Next, we're going to set our time zone. Mine's going to be America/Denver. Yours would be wherever you are. Komodo core environment. A lot of this, I'm going to have to zoom out just a little bit here, I think. Yeah. I didn't really mess with most of this. The Komodo host is if you're using OAuth or if you're using webhook suggestions, that sort of thing, reverse proxies. I wouldn't probably publish this online, so I'm not going to change that. I'm just going to leave it as it is. Oops. I'm going to change this to Komodo Livestream, right? And this is where I get a bit confused. We talked about this earlier. Somebody mentioned that that the issue that I was having with my core instance, my main instance that we were looking at earlier, was that it was in this file. I tried changing this to the IP address of this instance, both here and in the dashboard, and it just didn't work. But we're going to do it again anyway. Oh, I've got a sad kitten. Hi, buddy. 192.168.0.19, right? We can always come back and change that later if we need to, back to periphery. Disable confirm dialog. I'm going to say true, just so that it's easier, faster to deploy some things. We're going to scroll down. Monitoring interval 15 seconds. You can do 1, 5, 15, or you can start jumping into minutes. I think 15 seconds is fine. Let's see, and that is for status, container status, system status alerting. And then we can get into resource stuff for poll interval. That's same thing. It's going to do it by default once an hour, but you can do it let's do it every 15 minutes, right? Oops, 15 - minutes. And then we've got some more secret stuff here. And again, these don't matter. I'm just going to mash my keyboard just for these random secrets. Right? They can be whatever. And then your JWT or your token there. How long do you want that to last? A day is fine. Komodo local auth true. If you were to set this to false, you would want to implement OIDC farther down in your environment variable. So local auth, yes. Disable user registration. I'm only going to have this local, so it doesn't really matter, but I'm very much somebody who would set this to true. Do you want to enable, I'm going to set it to false. Because the next line is, do you want to enable new users? False. Disable nod admin create, true or false. Transparent mode, true or false. Logging, false. Like there's a lot of stuff in here. Here's your OIDC stuff if you had authentic or something like that enabled. So there's a lot of other stuff in here, I think. GitHub authentication, Google authentication, Komodo AWS authentication, periphery root directory. That's fine. This Komodo passkey right here is actually declared way up at the top. So we don't need to mess with that. It's already throwing that variable in there. Do you want to disable terminals? Yes or no? Do you want to enable SSL using self-signed certificates? Yes or no? You're not actually late to the party. We did a demonstration for about 45 minutes. We're just deploying our first main instance of this. Once this is up and running, then we will start installing some agents on a couple of other LXCs that are ready so that we can show what it's like to deploy things on other servers or LXCs or however we wanted to handle that. Then we can get into, do we want to include disk mounts for periphery logging, and that's where it ends. So that is the compose.env file. I'm just going to save it and exit, and I'm going to clear my screen. The other thing that I want to do here is actually I want to do a nano. I want to do Mongo compose.yaml. That's the Docker compose that we're going to deploy here in a minute. We're going to edit this because there's some things in here I want to see as well. Our first service is Mongo. That's our database. This is all fine. Our environment, there's our username and password from that env file. Of course, oh, nope, there it is. So what I find interesting, now that I'm looking at it, like if we look at core here, right, it's got this env file, and it's declaring that compose.env file, but for some reason, it's not declared up here in the Mongo database area, which is probably why it was throwing a fit that I hadn't modified the username and password when I was deploying this earlier. I feel like this needs to be there in order for it to recognize those variables. Alexia is here in Discord or in Twitch. Thank you very much for hanging out. I appreciate it. Let's see. Note about the periphery root directory. It is where the stacks will be built. That's good to know. That is good to know. Thank you for sharing that. So here we've got our core image where we're going to, that's interesting. So again, we're connecting to the database with the environment variables there. And then here, right, this is, path to syncs. So if you're storing sync files on the server, you would want to uncomment that line. If you were doing something with your core config toml files, you would uncomment that line. We're not going to be doing either of those, so I'm going to comment them back out. But that's what's going on there. If you were using the systemd periphery setup for this, you would need to uncomment this line and that line as well. Again, we're not doing that. Oops. So we're going to do that. Oops, damn it. When can we watch the full video? No idea. I haven't got that far yet. Just doing this. I always like to do these live streams first so that if you smarter people who are in the live stream are able to help me understand something better, I can explain it better in the actual video. So while this is a demonstration for you guys, it's also me learning stuff as well, so that I can speak more knowledgeably when I do the actual formal presentation of what we're doing. Next, we've got periphery. Deploy to periphery container using this block, or deploy as a systemd service. And again, we've got our labels for Komodo skip, which stops it from stopping this container or Komodo itself. Again, we've got our env file. We've got some volumes for the Docker socket, and then to see processes outside of the container. And we've got our root directory here that was mentioned earlier. Let's see. JD says, I'm not smart. That's some danger level of trust there. Dude, that's all I got to say there. And we've got some volumes, right, for the database and the config and the core. And that's it. That is what we're going to do here. All of this is good. So we're going to do that. We're just going to save and exit to make sure that the changes that we made will work. And then the next step will be to deploy our setup. And to do that, we're going to do docker compose -f compose or docker. Wow, docker run, right? Holy crap. Now my brain is doubting everything I've ever thought about anything. Here we go. That's what we're going to do. We're going to run this command because my brain just completely failed on me. Docker compose -p Komodo -f Komodo Mongo. That's so weird. I didn't have to run all of that, but we're going to run it. Yeah, that's what I thought. That's what I thought. We're gonna clean this up a little bit because I don't like that. Right. What? Pose. Oh, Docker run. Wow, I'm having a minute. Docker run. Okay. I am really having a moment here. I'm truly actually embarrassed for myself. There, that's what I want. Docker compose, there it is. Copy. There. Yeah, it's saying, hey, this username and password wasn't set, though I did. Peter says, happy Saturday. Glad to have you here. Aaron says, I always look forward to these live streams. I was itching for one yesterday. Well, I'm glad that you're here. I'm glad you got to catch at least part of it. That's awesome. See the upper direct. Yeah, I was totally having a moment, man. I have those sometimes. The way I kind of looked at this was periphery is basically like container agent, and core is, yeah, that's exactly right. That's a really good way to look at it. So everything's running now. So what I want to do, I'm going to drag this back over so we've got a bit more room. I'm gonna close this. I'm gonna do Docker PS because I don't. We're going to be on port 9120, right? And we're going to do 9120. Continue. There we go. So now we're going to create an account. Oops. Oh, we're gonna do this. DB tech. Sign up, and there we go. One server is unhealthy. Interesting. Let's zoom out a little bit. Fine. Everything looks fine. I don't understand. It says not okay. Oh, right. And there's why. Let's do this. Let's come over to here because I put in the IP address right there of this server, and it doesn't like that. So if I do this and I click save and I say update and I say confirm, hey, look, now it's fine. So this address right here, if I put in the IP address of the server, it says it's not healthy. It fails out. It has a conniption fit until I change this back to periphery. And that's super frustrating for when I deploy stacks because then when I click on that stack, it will try to take me to periphery and then that port number. And that's super, super frustrating. I do want to, if I come back to servers here, you can see that there's no region in there, and I don't like that. because my brain is dumb. I'm going to copy that, and then I'm going to change the region here. Oops. To that, and I'm going to click save, and I'm going to say update and confirm. I thought I disabled that, but apparently not. And if I come back to servers, now that region is there so that I know what I'm talking about. I could take this a step further, and I could call this local host, right? And then I've got a couple of different indicators there on what that looks like. And then look, at this point, I can say, I want to come in and I want to deploy a stack. What's a stack I should deploy? Let's find something. You know what? No, yeah. Well, let's say we'll do this. I'll let that fail for a second. Container name. IP address. You need to expose the ports on the host, which are not okay. That's, you know what? I'm actually glad you said that, because I feel like, let me do nano. It's actually Mongo, right? Down here, because you bring up a valid point for periphery. There are no ports right here for periphery, right? And I think that's what I was looking for earlier. So we're going to do ports, right? And we'll do 8120, 8120, right? Does this have agents like Dockage to centralize? That is literally why we're here, man. You could put the... You would have to put on the host network. Good call. So I feel like this should, in theory, fix that, because it's what I discovered when I deployed periphery, the agent on the other... Nope, stop. I didn't say anything close to that word. Let's do this. Let's do that. And then we're going to redeploy that. Hopefully, right? Oh, you know what? It's fine. It doesn't matter. I'll switch it over here, right? Servers, local host. We're going to do this and that and save and update and confirm. Hey, that was a good call. That was a good call. Let me try that, right? I wish that was in the Docker Compose and commented out, because just having periphery as the host name there, not great. Let's do dumb assets, right? Oops. Let's cd into dumb assets, ls, and no Docker Compose. Oh, poo. Copy. Come back over to here. We're going to create a new stack. We're going to call it assets. That was such a good call on adding that port there. What I want to do, this is going to be on localhost because I've only got this. The select mode is going to be user defined, and I'm going to paste that in there. And I'm also going to get rid of some of this. Right. Users there and developers very active. That's really, really good to know. I'm going to declare this as home Docker assets, right? That's fine. That's fine. Debug is fine. This is going to be on 0.19 though. That's fine. Okay. So then I should be able to scroll down. Oops, hold on. Let's make sure. We can add environment variables here if we want to do that. I don't want to do that. You can have it auto update. You can have it pull for updates and check for updates on an image on an interval. So this will just check for updates, and you can get notified of that. Auto update, I don't like to auto update. Full stack auto update, not a big fan. Cool. I'm just going to click save. And here we can see everything that I've added there. I'm going to click update and confirm. That was weird, whatever. And deploy and confirm. Says it's deploying. The one thing that I wish it did here was give me something to work with so I could kind of see what was going on. Like, I know that I can see this after the fact, but would be nice if I could see it locally. Interesting. Running servers. Local host. Interesting. Containers. There it is. And that worked. Cool. That actually worked. Yeah, adding the IP address to, adding the port to the periphery container fixed that. That was a great call. You could, I believe that the compose files are configurable as far as where they're stored. Yep, Christoph says, I'm guessing that's for security by default. Would be nice to have a comment about it in the example, or have it there and comment it out with an explanation. Would be awesome. Periphery root directory is where you would define that, is what Michael is saying. That's amazing. I can't help but wonder if a couple of you aren't from the development team of Komodo. Your knowledge here is super impressive. So I can't help but wonder if maybe you guys aren't associated with the project. If you are, that's amazing. I'm not trying to be like, how dare you? Because like, I'm trying to learn just as much as anybody else is here. But I'm super thankful that you guys have got so much information. This is amazing. So here we can see, right? Like this is up and working. And we've got our servers here. We can add a new server if we want to do that. We're gonna do that actually, right? Let's do that. Let's add another server. We're gonna come back to here, and we're going to connect more servers. And then we've got this Docker Compose that we can run here, or we can run it. Wait, tell you what. Let's just do this, right? And you both come back. I'm not smart enough to be on the dev team. I swear I'm not. I just used it for a long time since it used to be called Monitor. I think I remember that, which I appreciate swapping the name, but kind of keeping the lizardy, reptile-y thing going on there. I kept giving feedback and the developers implemented a lot of things to correct. Dude, that's great. I love when developers are easy to work with. Genuinely makes me happy. So this is installing the periphery agent container, right? You can do this using a systemd command, but we're going to keep everything in Docker for the sake of keeping things consistent here. So I'm going to come back over to here. We were in Komodo master. We're going to go to Komodo 1, right? I want to make sure that Docker is up and running. Portainer is running in there. Let's stop that. Portainer, oops. Docker stop Portainer. There we go. Docker rm Portainer. There we go. No more Portainer. Cool. Let's clear our screen. Let's make a directory. Make dir. We'll call it Komodo agent, and we're going to cd into Komodo agent, and then we're going to do a nano docker compose.yaml file. We're going to paste that in there like so. I don't know if we actually need an env file for this one. Probably, maybe, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, you don't necessarily need one, but there are some things in here for your periphery root directory. By default, it's going to go to, it looks like etc/Komodo. And then below that, so basically, here's the thing. This took me a bit to understand. When you've got an image or something like this, and it's like Komodo-periphery, and then it's got like this variable thing going on here. If you've got an env file that has this environment variable declared, it will use that. Otherwise, it will use this. So if you want to override it with an env file, you can do that. If not, it will just default to whatever is after the :/ and then the thing, right? So next we've got our root directory. Again, by default, it will default to etc/Komodo. Now we've got this periphery pass key right here. This is what I mentioned earlier. That's what this key was that I said we were going to need later. We need it now. So I'm going to come in here. Oops, I'm going to come back up to here. I'm going to paste that in. That is like the SSH key between the two things. It's not an SSH key, but it kind of is, right? It's saying, hey, this passcode matches this passcode, we can talk. So that's what that's for. SSL enabled, yep. Disable terminals, nope. Include disk mounts, host name, great. Docker socket processes, all of that is great. A root directory down here as well is going to default to etc/Komodo. And then this part right here, this is what should be in the Docker Compose of the core app. Those two lines right there. I don't know if I've got, I'm gonna do this, right? This section right there should be in the Docker Compose of the core system. Even if it's commented out like it was right there, that should be there so that we can work with it. But there we go. That should be everything that we need in order for this to work. So I'm going to do Control O and Enter and Control X. And then I'm going to come back over to here just real quick. I'm going to call this Komodo 1 like so and click Create. And now it says it's unknown. It doesn't know what to do because nothing is communicating with it. So what we're going to do, we're going to clear our screen. We're going to do Docker compose up-D. So now it's going to pull and deploy this periphery container. And it's the Komodo agent. Cool. And if we do a Docker PS, hey, look, it's running. It's created 6 seconds ago. It's been up for 3 seconds. Drag this over to here. Refresh. It may take it a minute or two to communicate, but we can, oh, you know what? I lied. We need to do 2 things here, right? The first one is that we need to grab this IP address because that is the address of that server. And we also need to enable it. This was disabled. We're going to enable it. We're going to click Save. Say, hey, here are the 2 things you're changing. Again, I love seeing like these are the changes you're making right now. Update, confirm. Hey, look. Now we're online. Just that easy. You can deploy that. Hold on, I got to read this. Fingerprint. That's a good word for that. I agree. I think it might easily turn users into evangelists. Yeah, I can see that. Like once I started getting the hang of this, I immediately was like, oh, this is great. Fingerprint, right? Oh, they're going to add Docker Swarm, and I believe even Kubernetes is on the roadmap. That's cool. I don't use orchestration platforms like that, but again, I don't use a lot of the features that are in here, so I'm glad that they're catering to a large group of people. I love that. I did learn that if you use TOML files, you can restrict what hosts periphery will listen to. That's really good to know. Kind of an extra layer of security. That's awesome. That's really, really good. So, I'm actually happy with that. Oh, you know what? I want to add this IP address down here. Oops. To the region. We're going to click Save. We're going to click Update and Confirm. Again, I thought I disabled the double click, but whatever. It doesn't matter. So now we've got 2 servers. We can see their IP addresses. We can see that there's no resources available on Komodo 1. But if I come over to Stacks and I click Assets, I can do that. I can turn assets, the dumb assets, into a template, and then I can come over here. That's interesting. I didn't consider that. It's still there. That's neat. All right, new stack, assets. We're gonna call it assets 1. Assets create, and then that. Nope, that's wrong. Komodo. What IP address is Komodo 1? It's 42. I screwed that up. That should be 42. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Then we're gonna scroll down. We're gonna make sure all this looks good. Then we're gonna say save. Hey, we changed 19 to 42. We're gonna click update and confirm. And there we go. And then we're going to click on redeploy and confirm. Interesting. I am so confused. Did it not? It deployed it twice. Why did it deploy it twice? I am confused. Interesting. I thought I could do that, and I was wrong, but I'm learning. You know, I did screw that up. They didn't have the same IP address. Komodo 1 should actually be I copied it from here. It should actually be 42. So I screwed that up, and it was a good catch. I kind of caught it a second ago, but I hadn't had a chance to double check that, confirm. So that was totally my fault, but you did a great job on catching that. So let's do this. Assets 1, stacks. We're going to do this again. Assets 21. Sure, why not? Create, right? And this time I don't want it on localhost. I want it on Komodo 1, and I want that to be 42. I missed this step right here. I tried to redeploy it on itself. That was my fault. I was not paying attention to that. This time, if I click save and update and confirm, there, stacks, there we go. Assets 21, deploy, confirm. Now we should have it running on 2 separate instances. Stacks, Komodo, localhost, great. Now everything appears to be working appropriately. Yay. Let's come over to here. Containers. So this one is on 42. Continue, that's fine. That worked. And then 3000, this one is on 19. Same thing. And if I come over to here and do 1, 2, 3, 4, now all of that is working. And I was able to quickly deploy that on 2 different things after I paid attention. And again, you can redeploy this agent on as many servers as you want or need to, and then come into servers and you can be like, oh, I want to look at what's going on this local host, and I want to see what's going on here. This has got dumb assets and Portainer. I don't want Portainer running, so let's destroy that, right? We're going to give that a second. That should, there it goes. And if I come back to servers, interesting. I don't know why it's still showing me 2. It shouldn't. Is this counting as something else? Interesting. Servers, Komodo, resources, builders, containers. No, why? This is, every once in a while it goes into that voice assistant, man. Post settings. Volumes. Volumes are right here. It doesn't appear that it allows you to create volumes from here. Portainer data, I can delete volumes from here. But it doesn't look like from here I can create new volumes. You can prune things from here, but creating volumes from here I don't think is an option. You probably could, if you were running periphery as a systemd file and then went into like here and then went to terminals, new terminal, just do this, Docker volume create 234. So it looks like it created that. So if I go to servers and then localhost, oops, and then is it resources? No, where was it? Docker, yeah. So I was able to create a Docker volume through the terminal there. Switch the mute button on voice assistant, yeah. But you can come over to terminals and from here do Docker volume create and create your volume from there, and then come back over and you can see that's the one that I just created. And then if I didn't want it anymore, I could click delete, or I could do like prune system and confirm. And then in theory, it should, I would think, get rid of that. Oh, prune volumes, there we go, confirm, and do it that way. So it doesn't have a volume, create volume button, but you can, through the terminal, create a volume that way. So yes and no, depends on how you want to handle it. Probably the same thing here. You could do like Docker network create. We'll just do that and hit enter. And hey, look, it did that. So if I go back to Docker, maybe not. Let's refresh. Hey, there it is. There's the volume that we just created. So again, you just got to do it semi-manually, but the terminal window is literally right there. So it is just a matter, but you've got to be comfortable with doing Docker commands for that to work. And I always encourage getting familiar with Docker commands in the terminal window, because sometimes your GUI isn't going to work. It's going to crash. Something is going to go wrong. I encourage you to get familiar with Docker container or Docker commands that you can run in the terminal if you have to. Let's see. In Portainer and container actions, there's a shortcut. Stacks. Let's look here. Services, logs, links, services, log. I don't know. I don't know if that is an option in here for having a terminal in here. I'll tell you what. Let's do this. I'm just curious to see. So we're gonna do localhost terminal. Let's just do Docker PS. Okay, so we can see that. So we could do like Docker exec dash IT, and then DOM assets. Exec requires at least 2 arguments. Didn't I do that? Did I miss something? Oh, I did. It requires that. Fine. Well, apparently it doesn't have that, but yeah, like, so you could, if that was an option in this container, you should be able to go over here and do something. Oh, it did. It actually did that time. I'm in app, right? Yeah. So you can do, let me see if I can zoom in on that a little bit. Wow. If I could, oh, I can't. Interesting. There we go. Maybe, would that be better? Yeah. So you could, again, come over here. I zoomed way in there. You could, again, come into the terminal for that server, and run your Docker exec dash IT, the app name, and then sh in this particular case, and get into it that way. Again, this isn't in the application section. This is in the server section, where you would do that. So there are some things where Portainer definitely does have an advantage. But again, like I said earlier, I encourage you to learn the Docker commands, so that you can do these things in the terminal without relying on the user interface, because it's not always going to be there. Sometimes things are going to happen. Also, there keeps being a question. Wait, hold on. If you click containers in the menu, is there one in there? Destroy. Oh yeah, there it is. There it is. You're absolutely right. Thank you. I forgot my name. How much resources is it taking compared to Dockage? I don't know. Komodo master summary. 304 megs of RAM. I don't know what Dockage uses. But here's the thing. This, look, I love Dockage. I really do. Dockage is great, but it's not always going to be the be all end all. And the developer has been working on a lot of other projects and hasn't been updating Dockage as much. So I don't know if I would use that as my solution. Again, I've made some content about it. I love it. It's great. But with the inconsistent updates that the project is getting as far as release cycles and things like that, it doesn't have, it's not as feature rich as Portainer or Komodo. So this is going to use more resources because Komodo does more stuff. Thank you. Iced tea, yay. Yeah, Docker feature lacking and agent. And the agent, that's, I don't know. The agent, about 160 megs roughly for the agent. I guess I could show you that, but yeah, the agent right there, about 160 megs, and then Komodo itself, about 300 megs, give or take. There's some suggestion in here that I'm booting Portainer. I might. They didn't do anything, like they didn't do anything wrong. But when I'm managing 18 LXCs and 2 VMs, this may be a better solution for me because I can do everything from one dashboard more easily, up to and including actually managing the individual Docker compose files for each container. Whereas if I want to do that with Portainer, I have to log into each version of Portainer to manage the Docker container therein or the Docker compose therein. Like I can update things, like I can do little things via the Portainer agent in my setup, but it doesn't give me full access like this does. At least the free model doesn't. I don't know if the business edition is any different than that. So there's So since I've been messing around with this a little bit, I've been considering possibly switching over to Komodo, but again, I made my first video about pangolins 6 months ago, and it wasn't until yesterday when I was thrown into a situation that basically required it before I implemented it for myself. And I've only moved three sites to it so far. I'm not in a big hurry to make a lot of huge changes, is the takeaway from that. So while I very much may switch to it eventually, or I may, if I ever redeploy my home lab, which I've considered doing a couple of times, I may consider switching to Komodo at that point. But as far as actually, like while everything is up and working the way I want it to, I don't have any desire to switch over. And that's actually something else. Right, just to show this, right? Komodo 1 stacks. Okay, let's do this, right? Just for demonstrative purposes here. Let's do Portainer install, right? I'm just going to grab that. Here I am. I'm going to go to Komodo 1. I'm going to go to the console. I'm going to install Portainer in Komodo 1, right? Everything was already there, so we just had to bring it back up. If I come back over to here and I go to servers and I go to Komodo 1, oh crap, where did it go? Containers. There's Portainer, right? So this just redeployed a second ago. I can't do anything in here. I can't import this and manage it from here because I deployed it outside of Komodo. This is very much the same thing that Portainer suffers from in its setup, which is probably for security reasons. But if anything is deployed outside of Komodo, I can restart it, I can pause it, I can stop it, I can get rid of it, but I can't from here manage the Docker Compose. I can't manage any of the things going on within that container. We can see that it's up for 43 seconds. Like I can see information about it, but I can't do anything with it. So even if I were to deploy Komodo and agents on different servers, I wouldn't be able to import them and manage them the same way as if I had deployed them from Komodo. And again, this is the same issue or the same feature or whatever it happens to be with Portainer. So that's also something that would keep me from just deploying Komodo across the board and being done with it, because I would have to grab all of my Docker Compose files for everything I've got running and redeploy everything. I would still use the same, like paths and everything where all of my data already is. So there really I wouldn't lose anything if I backed everything up appropriately, but deploying this 18 times and then like I mentioned in my last video where we talked about the different things that I'm hosting in my home lab back here, like my WordPress instance has WordPress and a Portainer, whatever, Redis, MySQL, I've got a Cloudflare tunnel, which I'm getting ready to switch over, but like each stack has like 5 containers in it. So I would basically be redeploying like 100+ containers just to switch platforms, and everything is currently working. So if that changes, I might change my mind. I might do something where I deploy a Komodo master node on my HL15, and then if something new, if I decide to add something new to my home lab, I might deploy it via Komodo. But to just make a full swap, I'd rather hit myself in the toe with a hammer. I have no desire to make that switch unless I absolutely have to. Did Komodo show all of the containers in one view? Yeah, it did. Yeah, and what's great about this is you can see right here This is on like these 3 on Komodo 1. Those 4 are on the local host. So you can't, I wonder, local host? Nope. It would be nice if you could narrow it down. Like, I mean, you can. Like you can go to localhost and Docker. No, that's containers. So you can drill down different ways to see which apps or which services are strictly on each server. But yeah, you can just come to containers up here, and there's everything running on your infrastructure. And then from here, again, like we're on 19, which is localhost, which is this one right here. And if I click that, it opens up, and there is 19. But this dumb assets is running on 0.42 on port 3000, and I can access it from there as well. You can't see any of that. I am dumb. I apologize. But yeah, like, so from here, containers, there's all of them, right? Komodo, this is our Komodo 1. This is our agent. This is our remote server. Localhost is our local server that we're on. And I can open these up on their native platform. Like that's the remote server that I opened up. This is the local server version. So yeah, being able to see everything on there that quickly and easily, or go to servers, go to Komodo 1, our remote server, go to Docker. Hey, look, there are the services running on that remote server, or I can come back to servers and do localhost and look at my containers that are on this machine. So I love that. Did Komodo show up? Yep. If you turn off the monitoring, you probably have the same. Yeah, but the monitoring is what's so good about this. The monitoring is so good. I can't imagine turning that off. Like again, in here, like you can see in here, the dumb assets is using 0.02%. It's using of the CPU. It's using 88 megs. Like you can see in each server all of the reporting for what's the CPU, how many cores do we have, how much memory do we have, what are the individual apps doing. You can see the historical data. This is brilliant. I can't imagine turning this off to save 50 megs or even 150 megs. I would give it a gig of if I could get this kind of reporting. Absolutely. Christoph says, for me, I really wanted to get all of my Docker Compose files into a central repository and have it version controlled. I would love to do that too. But I'm so lazy. But I need to just so I've got it. Monish says, I left Portainer when they went from, I don't know what that is, but Dockage is so lacking. Yep, switch screens. Thank you. Yeah, no, I was being dumb. Thank you for that. I hate it when I have to look through a server to find a container. Yep. I think I was able to adopt running containers in Komodo when adding the compose files without the need to redeploy to restart the container. Yep. What did you switch to in place for your Cloudflare tunnels? So I'm currently in the process of slowly switching from Cloudflare tunnels to Pangolin, and it really started with. That's good. I'm glad he's happy. Kid's gonna probably come through here in a minute, so he can go jump on the trampoline and swim and whatnot. But I ran into an issue where I was trying to use Postas to post some stuff about the live stream and some other stuff that was going on, and it kept failing on Facebook. And as I was digging into the console and looking through everything, I realized that it was Cloudflare's beacon.js analytic file that was causing things to fail. So finally, I just redeployed Komodo and pointed all of the necessary DNS records to that instance, and so now I'm working on slowly moving things to Pangolin, because I really feel like I would rather do that. Now that said, I will lose out on the analytic data, but I don't hardly ever look at it anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But somebody in my Discord said they may be able to help me get analytic data from Pangolin and that whole stack into a Grafana setup. And if that happens, that'll be revolutionary. So, what are you just the file? Yep. For monitoring, I would highly recommend Pulse. I'm not entirely sure I know what that is. Pulse monitoring service. I'm not. Is this what you're talking about? There's Laravel Pulse. All right, Nighthawk. Thanks for stopping by. Appreciate it. Monish, I don't know if this is what you're talking about. Because like Pulse monitoring service, man, that is such a vague term, which I hate. There's so many people that are like, oh, I'm going to call my service Banana. Well done. Now nobody can find you because like I understand why they might call it Pulse. Okay, let's look at this. This might be helpful. Pulse, Cortman, R Cortman. There it is. Okay. All right, so it's been updated. That's the first thing I always look at. A responsive monitoring application for Proxmox VE that displays real-time metrics across multiple nodes. Huh. Interesting. I mean, that's an interesting idea. I don't hate it. They're using community scripts, which I appreciate. That's good. Or rather, community scripts has made a script for them. I don't hate it. It's kind of an interesting idea. Or you can do it that way. Interesting. Yeah, I might have to check that out. I'll save that for later. In fact, you know what I'll do? I'll put that over here so that I've got it and I don't accidentally close that. Link. Yeah, I can give you a link. There you go. It's got eye candy. Yeah. Yeah, like it looks all right. I might prerequisites, Proxmox VE, community script. Yep, that's fine. Let's come up here and look. Main storage backups PBS. Okay, I dig all that. That's cool. Yeah, I might have to give that a look. Thanks for sharing that. I appreciate it. Yeah, it's open. All right, dude. Have fun. Do you need help? You got it? Go ahead. You got it. Go. Don't just stand there, you dork. Go. Oh, really? Okay, you're not as funny as you think you are. Go. Thank you. It's fine. But yeah, I'll definitely take a look at that. Oops, let's close that. It does Proxmox as well as PBS. I noticed that. That's awesome. That's really cool. Yeah, I'll have to take a look at that. That looks like an interesting idea. But anyway, I just wanted to take a look at Komodo in the live stream. You guys have been immensely helpful in helping me understand some things. That said, I'll never probably use any of those things. I would probably just use servers and stacks, or like I said, like from dashboard to stacks. Skip all of this. Alerts, updates, and settings I would use, but I would probably not use any of that other stuff with the way I currently manage my setup. So super stoked that this is a thing. Kind of sad I didn't look at it sooner, but it is what it is. You hit everything when you need to hit everything. If you're of that mind. Yeah, the kid's pretty funny. He thinks he's funnier than he is, but honestly, man, his day started out pretty rough. So him being happy like that, super happy about that. Like he started his day pretty rough, but was able to turn it around, and we've been seeing a lot more of that lately, and that's super exciting for all of the people around him. His ability to turn things around. So yeah, I think I think if I keep going too much longer here, I'm going to start rambling. Um, new content coming up soon. I don't know when I'm going to do the Komodo video. I've got some other stuff that I'm working on. I've got a new mini PC to review for you guys. In fact, I've got two of them, but one of them I can't touch until for like another month. It's been sitting over here for almost a month and a half, and I can't touch it. I mean, I could do the review now, but tariffs are a thing that's really caused issues for some companies. So I've got some more hardware to review. Obviously, Komodo will be a video soon. I'm sure I'll have other stuff to take a look at. It looks like somebody is kind of coming in on the heels of the dumbware guys with some Zen stuff, which is also kind of simplified applications that we may take a look at. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But if you guys have got suggestions on projects or services or whatever you'd like me to take a look at, in the video description, at least on YouTube, because Twitch doesn't have them, there's a link over to our Discord, and there's a whole section in there for suggestions. And if you guys have suggestions, definitely go leave those in the suggestions channel. That'd be amazing. Terrorists might have to start smuggling tech. That's no joke, man. It's getting brutal out there. But yeah, if you've got suggestions, head over to the Discord, leave them there. Like I said, I've got some stuff planned. I'm also thinking about completely redoing the studio and making that different. I've actually been working on that for like a week now with an application to like lay this out. And that sort of thing. So lots of stuff coming, and I really want to thank you guys for hanging out and participating and being part of it. It really does mean a lot to me that you guys are here hanging out with me on your Saturday when I'm sure you could be doing just about anything else. So I think that's where I'm going to wrap this up. Again, thank you guys so much. I hope you have a great rest of your weekend. Don't do anything that's going to get you into any trouble, but try to have some fun. But I think with that said, I'm going to wrap this up. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you soon.